You can be live streaming. Yes. Okay. To what? Like someone.
And we're blessed to be here. We're blessed, certainly me as a young man, a child of this community. So many of you that I'm looking around at raised me. If you didn't physically have something to do with it, you were offering me and so many young people like myself encouraging words and support and pushing us ever so to arrive at, I would say, where I am right now. So I want to again thank everyone as we continue to come in. I think one bus has just arrived to welcome you to campus, and welcome you to the 16th annual lecture series honoring the legacy and the leadership of the Mohammed. Just a couple of logistics. The bathroom, you can go out of this, or there is outside a hallway to your left, to another hallway, there and women's bathrooms. If you do pray, there is a classroom, a sort of auditorium, right before you get to this one. There are prayer rugs there, and you should be able to make your prayers as well. There's water, there's coffee, there's something. Please make sure that you make yourselves at home. Those who are sitting on the outside, I can ask you to just move in a little bit so some of our elders and others who are coming can move in and be seated a little bit. As we get settled, I would like to welcome our honored speaker, Dr. Jamila Kareem from Dallas, Texas, but sort of by way of Atlanta, where we've known each other for many years. I was trying to find an old copy of the Muslim Journal where she and I appeared. You have it. I've been looking for that. They said, I know Jamila. And we're really grateful to have it with us. Well, that's what I was talking about. Without any further ado, because I can sort of ramble, I would like to ask Imam Sharif to come up and introduce himself, say a few words, and he always has the honor of introducing our guest speaker. We'll have our lecture. We'll have some Q&A. We want you to feel at home so you can get up and sort of move around as needed. So thank you so much. We are deeply appreciative of your time. Once we're done, I do have an announcement that I do feel is really important. And part of that is to get us to start contributing your voices to this program and to our efforts. Not only your voices, your history, your story, your narrative, but also any digital material, old FOI uniforms, or old notes, or old papers, or pictures, newspapers. We're really hoping, and I think it was the intent of Imam Sharif and Imam Sohaib, to eventually not just have this lecture series, but also couple it with an archives project. So we can archive through the Princeton Library and do special collections and that sort of thing, our history, and really speak to the story of how we've lived out these teachings and Islam in New Jersey. So we'd like to, many of you from Trenton, and in the Masjid in Trenton, many of you in Newark, all over New Jersey, we really invite you to share your information with us, and give us your information so that we can then reach out to you. For the past 2 summers, we've had students working on oral histories, interns that we hired, and we'll continue to do that. And we hope that we'll be able to spend some time with each and every one of you who are willing to share your story. Let us come into the basement. Like we're all trying to go through stuff, help you organize stuff that you've been trying to get to for 30 years. We got a lot of students ready to help. And so let us be of service to us, and hopefully we'll be able to be inspired to start telling our stories in the national. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. That I really say that that's time. Okay. So Imam Sharif, we invite you to come and share. And thank you again. We appreciate your presence. So.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm going to follow instructions and get in closer to the microphone. Praise be to Allah. And you can always count on a sister to keep us on point. Praise be to Allah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu wa khatamun nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dear believers, guests, friends, family, peace be upon you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to, this word, the phrase Ahlan wa sahlan, it's translated to say welcome, but it's really meant reference to inviting people to be part of a family. A family that is on the plane, or a family that is looking at each other as equals, right? And that we're here to help each other to achieve, inshallah. Praise be to Allah. Now, alhamdulillah, I want to first thank, Creator for the opportunity that He has given us to assemble this very significant event. As our Imam Khalil Abdullah pointed out, this is our 16th year. I had no idea that we were going to be doing this 16 years. When we first started out, it started out as just a small lecture that was going to be in a small little hall. And now we're here and we have grown. We've had so many people coming from across, the United States and contributing to the knowledge of our Imam, the knowledge of a leader that should be known not just in the United States, but should also be recognized by the human community, because his life is a reflection of trying to bring the human community together, and bringing us together and living as human beings and civilized people. So we should always remember that whenever we come here, reflect upon the life of our Imam, Mohammed, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him and grant him Jannah Firdaus, inshallah. And may we always represent him in the manner that he preferred for us to be represented. Praise be to Allah. I cannot go any further without, first of all, acknowledging my wife. Halima's here. Praise be to Allah. She's been with me 16 years for this event. Praise be to Allah. Starting out, she makes the journey. I get her to get dressed early so that we can get here on time. And she doesn't give me no static. She knows how important it is. Praise be to Allah. So I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing me with a patient wife. Praise be to Allah. But I can try your patience. Praise be to Allah. And as well, it's important for me to again thank Imam Khalil Abdullah. And also I want to thank his predecessor, Imam Sultan Shuhaid, and his wife is here. There she is. Praise be to Allah. Her family, her husband's parents, am I right? Right? They all were instrumental in kind of putting together the idea of recognizing Imam Muhammad, and the work that he does. As a matter of fact, it was her in-laws that insisted upon making sure that we had this event at Princeton University. So, we're very grateful for the contribution that all of them have made I want to thank Sister Lena. Where's Lena? There she is, carrying the baby. Praise be to Allah. Says, thank you, Sister Lena. Sultana Whitfield, where is she? If anybody knows Sultana, when Sultana involved in anything, it's gonna be right. Right? And if you're not right, she's gonna get you right. So Sultana has been on us to make sure that this program moves forward with the same kind of tradition that we've had for 16 years, praise be to Allah. Also, I want to thank Sister Shay. Where's Shay? Right, Shay, for arranging the transportation for those coming from Newark, to be here for the 16th year. And finally, let me welcome our beloved sister, Dr. Kareem. We can't tell you how pleased we are to have you here with us this year. Praise be to Allah. And we'll probably have you back for another year. You know that, right? Because once we get you, we can't let you go. Praise be to Allah. So let me just read something about, if you have not read anything about Dr. Kareem, they gave me a script. And I'm used to not following a script, but I will follow the script to make sure that I don't leave anything out. Dr. Kareem's bio, this is the full version. Jamila Kareem is an award-winning author, speaker, and blogger. She specializes in race, gender, and Islam in America. Jamila is author of Women of the Nation Between Black Protests and Sunni Islam with Dawn Marie Gibson, is that correct? And American Muslim Women, Negotiating Race, Class, and Gender Within the Ummah. And that also needs to be part of the whole complexion of the United States of America in terms of race, gender, and class. But that's the struggle that the United States of America is struggling with right now. So if we can contribute to making it easier for people to live together and learn how to know each other better, then I hope and I pray that this event is a contributor to that. Jamila regularly speaks at college campuses and Muslim conferences across the nation. In 2014, her scholarly activism was recognized by Jet magazine, which featured her as a young faith leader in the African American community. Jamila is a former associate professor in the Department of Religious Studies at Spelman College. And I know many of you will say, yay. She holds a BSE in electrical engineering. I didn't know that you were an engineer. Praise be to Allah. Now you know how that affects me, right? Praise be to Allah. You just got another star by your name. She holds a BS in engineering, electrical engineering, and a PhD in Islamic studies from Duke University. With that, please join me in warmly welcoming my sister, Dr. Jamila Kareem.
I feel at home. Indeed, I do. And I want to echo all of the acknowledgments and expressions of gratitude. For time's sake, I'm going to move into my talk. But I do want to say that I'm very honored and humbled. As you will see, my research and my writings will not be possible without you, literally. And I'm really speaking to the men and women in our community, particularly the women. For my first book, that included African American and South Asian Arab Muslims, and for my second book, Women in the Nation of Islam, formerly in the Nation of Islam. Would you agree with me that when you hear the words female minister, we think of another word that starts with F-E-M, feminism? We tend to treat feminism like a bad word, in Muslim communities, and in Black communities. And we would never associate such a term with our leaders. However, Imam Mohammed, rahimahullah, did some very feminist things when he led America's mass conversion to Al-Islam in 1975. Imam Mohammed was not a feminist. Gender equality was not his guiding principle. However, empowering women was central to his work in transitioning the Black Muslims from the Nation of Islam to Universal Al-Islam. Women were at the center, not the periphery of his work. In a February 1977 lecture, Imam Mohammed stated, "Women's lib is not an accident. It is a divine thing, but women have to rise above the lib to understand that we want more than just lib. We want mothers who have mothers' hearts. We want to hear some hearts, some mother sentiments." Another quote, "Society is suffering right now, not because we don't have male leadership, but because we don't have mother leadership. That's the greatest role a woman can have." Imam Mohammed was redefining women's liberation in his own terms. It is also in the 1970s that we find the birth of Black feminism. Bell Hooks coined the term Black feminist and critiqued mainstream feminism for being focused on white women's issues. Alice Walker introduced the term womanist in 1982 to rename or to name Black feminism. Black women writers and activists centered race in their feminism and the well-being of the entire race. Years before Alice Walker coined womanist, Imam Mohammed said, "I am trying to promote women's lib and at the same time save society." For Imam Mohammed and pioneering Black women scholars, women's liberation was about elevating the entire community. This type of mirroring between Black feminism and Imam Muhammad's ideas sets the backdrop of my talk today. Not only was Imam Mohammed a seminal leader in establishing Islam in America, he was a leader in advancing the cause of women in ways that resonated and nurtured Black women and their families. Imam Mohammed is most known for bringing the NOI community into the fold of Al-Islam. He assumed leadership of the NOI upon the death of his father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in 1975, and immediately taught from the Quran, replacing the nation's concept of God in the person with the universal Islamic understanding of a transcendent God. In the first year, he instructed his community to participate in the Ramadan fast and 5 daily prayers, and changed the name of his community's national newspaper from Muhammad Speaks to Bilalian News. Imam Muhammad began using the term Bilalian to refer to Black Americans, connecting them to the legacy of Bilal ibn Rabah, the enslaved African who converted to Islam in Mecca, and the first muezzin or prayer caller. By 1977, Imam Muhammad had redesignated temples as mosques and then as masjids, and ministers as imams. Imam Muhammad also revised the nation's approach to Black liberation with a new political stance toward America, whose ideals of freedom, justice, and equality he emphasized and backed up by placing the American flag on the cover of the Bilalian News. The new ideology and changes in the organizational structure of the nation brought new opportunities for women. In April 1975, Chief Minister Wallace Muhammad appointed the first female minister of the Nation of Islam at Muhammad's Temple No. 2 in Chicago, Illinois. Minister Sherilyn X was not assigned to lead a temple, but rather to write a regular column in then Muhammad Speaks newspaper entitled Minister Sherilyn. She was also charged to present a spiritual message to the women in their temple classes. By November 1976, over a year later, Minister Sherilyn continued to carry the title minister. However, she had received an Arabic name from Chief Minister Wallace Mohammed, Amatullah Umrani. By this time, 14 other women had been named to the first sister minister's class. In a recent article in the Muslim Journal, Sister Amatullah described that classes were serious and intense with a focus on the basic practices of Al-Islam, Quranic Arabic, and the language and the thought of Imam Mohammed, sometimes provided in person from him and from his speeches and writing, including the minister's kit. They learned how to call the adhan and the iqamah and perform and lead prayers, while not doing this for males other than children, nor heading the masjid, she clarified. After male ministers became imams, the key point, so once the name was shifted from ministers to imams, women in corresponding roles were given the title instructresses in religion. The size of the ministers or instructresses classes continued to grow in the early years. Classes helped prepare the women to teach and present or represent the religion in various settings, from the masjid, rostrum, to churches, community centers, outdoor rallies, and with the incarcerated, she wrote. After the foundation was laid, Imam Mohammed later stated that there was no need for separate men's and women's classes in the area of religion. Imam Muhammad's radical idea to confer the title of minister to Muslim women religious leaders could have only happened because of the movement upon which Imam Muhammad was building upon, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. How would this Black freedom movement foundation facilitate Imam Muhammad's developing a liberating gender ideology and practice from which Black women could thrive and lead in their families and communities? A look back at women's roles and participation in the Nation of Islam reveals the context of Imam Muhammad's changes and answers why women wholeheartedly embraced them. The NOI's gender ideology stipulated separate gender spheres for women and men, emphasizing women's roles as homemaker and men's roles as breadwinner and protector. When we actually talk to former nation women, like many of you, we find two primary ways that they responded to the gender ideology. One, women found the gender ideology empowering, and two, women approved of the ideology, but not the same way that some men interpreted it. Whichever the case, we find that the gender ideology was not the paramount part of the NOI teachings for nation women. My beloved mother, may Allah have mercy on her. Over and over, what comes up as crucial for women in their decision to join the nation was its racial uplift message and its nation-building agenda, as we can see from my mother's comments. Nonetheless, when women joined, they were ushered into a world of separate gender spheres and roles through the FOI, the Fruit of Islam for the men, and MGT, the Muslim Girls Training for women. The primary charge of the FOI was to defend the nation. Alongside this was the responsibility for men to sell a certain number of NOI newspapers on city streets. The primary charge, or the counterpart of the FOI, was the MGT GCC, Muslim Girls Training and General Civilization class. In the MGT GCC, women were taught how to keep house, how to rear children, how to take care of a husband, sew, cook, and proper female decorum, including dress. Why did Black women embrace this focus on homemaking? We would imagine from the feminist movement that liberation for women meant working outside the home. But was going out to work what Black women really wanted? This is what was meant earlier by the emergence of Black feminism as a critique of mainstream feminism's focus on white women's issues. Because white women's place had been in the home, liberation for them meant breaking out of domestic confines and gaining equal access to jobs and wages, as well as other public spaces led by men. This sounds like freedom, but in reality, it has not been for Black women. Unlike white women, African American women have had much more to worry about than discrimination based on gender. Black women have told a different story of women's liberation. Racism affects our lives so profoundly and pervasively that we cannot effectively address sexism without addressing racism. I appreciate the way that poet and activist Nikki Giovanni captures the difference in the stories of feminism, where Black women were not even seen as a female body to be protected, but rather a Black body to be exploited. Giovanni stated, "When we look at the history of slavery, we have a whole situation where no one cared if you were a woman or not. You had to get out into the field. After freedom, no one cared if you were a woman or not. You had to work to support your family." So that's one of the problems with women's lib in relation to Black women. They look at themselves as women, but we have to look at ourselves as Black. Giovanni is right to begin with slavery to understand why Black and white women see feminism differently. Black women's beginnings in this country were defined by unrelenting work for white people. Washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, to borrow words from Margaret Walker's famous poem, "For My People." Going to work is not the meaning of liberation for Black women. Black women have always worked. The editorial staff at the Nation newspaper, Mohammed Speaks, spoke to this reality. The 1964 article and the caption, "Was slavery worse?" Above portrait of elderly woman harvesting white man's crops in Mississippi is reminiscent of slavery days when Black women, 8 months pregnant and the day after delivering child, were herded into fields to plant or harvest master's crop. Whether forced to work by present-day economic system or illegalized slavery, the contemporary scene above shows little has changed. We find that Black women embrace the nation's gender ideology because ideally it freed them from the work that had always been required of them. Yes, women consistently describe that they favor the idea of returning to men the obligation of maintaining the family. However, many women express some discontent with the degree that they were confined to the domestic sphere. Women wanted to learn how to be good wives and mothers, but they also wanted to be educated. Former Nation woman Linda Abdul-Salam disclosed. Some of my Linda. She's from New Jersey. There was this attitude that sisters really didn't need to be educated. I'm not going to say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that, but that did come through on a lot of levels, Linda added. They wanted you to be barefoot and pregnant. Her sarcastic remark indicates that how women interpreted their roles as mothers and homemakers was quite different from how men interpreted them. Obviously, men saw it as much more confined. In both subtle and direct ways, women found ways to expand their role and influence. Linda continued, when they were saying that the Black woman, or that the woman should be at home taking care of the kids, basically they were trying to say, woman, your role is to nurture, though not realizing that a woman can nurture in all aspects of society that she's involved in. Here, Linda defends nation ideology at the same time that she argues for women's expanded social roles. Similarly, a regular woman columnist, Mohammed Speaks, Tanetta Dinar, a columnist for the newspaper, once wrote in the paper, the Muslim woman is able to coordinate family responsibilities and community obligations as she educates on a level not only local and national, but international in scope. The way in which Nation women both accommodated and challenged Nation teachings represents a general predicament women in Black freedom movements found themselves. Since Black women faced both race and gender discrimination, there were moments when Black women had to surrender the fight for one to advance the other, and the racial fight often took precedence. As noted earlier, it was the racial uplift messages that attracted women to the Nation. As a result, it was relatively easy for women to overlook some of the male chauvinism in the Nation for the greater cause of community building. Nation women, therefore, went along with the idea that women's role in the home should be honored and cultivated. But they did not always want to be, and most were not restricted there. It is as though Imam Muhammad understood and spoke to this sentiment among women as he laid out his gender philosophy during the transition. In a 1979 interview, Imam Muhammad stated, I have re-examined the role of women in light of what Prophet Muhammad did to give more freedom and equality to women. I have come to the conclusion that in our religion, we cannot make any distinction between man and woman in terms of intelligence, spirituality, or nature. Morally and intellectually speaking, women are equal with men and they are not to be treated any differently. They are to engage in business, to own wealth, to own property. They are to be allowed to excel in academic pursuits. If women are given freedom to excel in academic pursuits, how can we tell them to stay home? What is all this education for? You can't keep women at home to nurse babies. At the same time that Imam Muhammad taught his community the religion, he crafted a women's liberation philosophy to which Black women could relate. He wisely coined the term mothers to society to shift the Nation of Islam's narrow focus on women as domestics by expanding their roles in society, while at the same time honoring women's unique contribution as mothers outlined in the nation. Former nation woman Mohsina Abdullah of Miami recalled, we were encouraged not only to be mothers and wives by Imam Muhammad, but to be mothers to the broader community. There was a greater contribution. Mothers to society, that was his term. There was a great contribution that we could provide to the world by going out and involving ourselves in the community. With Imam Muhammad, we find a new emphasis on women speaking out in settings beyond the home. The Imam used the language of the Quran to support the link between women and society. He noted the Quranic Arabic word for community, ummah, stems from the root word, which is also derived the Arabic term for mother. Instructress Hafiza Kashif wrote in the 1977 Women issue of the Islamic News, we as mothers, as women, womb of mind, must begin to instill in our children, our society, the love of the Creator, the love of truth, the love of pure, higher morals. We must become truly God-conscious and take advantage of our right to be women, to be mothers. We must begin to speak out in the society against corruption. Instructress Hafiza uses the unique language and thought of Imam Muhammad when she inserts the phrase womb of mind to define women. Man means mind. This concept corrected both white supremacy and the Nation of Islam's race theology. What defines a human being is his intellect, or her intellect, not his or her skin color, nor any other physical quality. Woman means womb of mind. With this concept, Imam Muhammad was correcting the biblical teaching that the woman caused Adam's fall. One way that medieval Christian theologians inculcated this idea was defining the word woman to mean woe, to man. Instead, Imam Muhammad said woman means womb of mind. Women are the ones who develop and cultivate minds. Imam Muhammad was more interested in correcting negative conceptions of women and connecting them to the concept of mind than he was in defining their role in the home. He connected them to society. He said that mind meant society. Therefore, women were the wombs of society. They shaped minds and thereby the world. Woman means womb of mind was an idea inspired by the Quran. Imam Muhammad said, the Holy Quran said that we should revere God, but that we should also revere the womb of the female. Many men tend to look down upon the woman as a producer or as a childbearer. Even many so-called great religious orders have regarded this physiological function of the female something to despise or something evil. The Prophet Muhammad said that women should not be despised because God has placed an abundance of good in them. Former nation woman Mary Hamidullah stated, I remember my mind just being completely blown away when Imam Mohammed said, man means mind and woman means human mind. It just was completely a game changer for me and for a lot of people, because I think those words for me, although womb of mind could put you in the light of a woman's role being the mother role, which is something I've always accepted, womb of mind to me was more expansive than just staying at home and raising children. And so for me, I think that opened up a lot of possibilities for thinking about a woman's work with our community. And it definitely made room for women who were seeking professional lives within the community and outside of the community. The poet and activist, Sonia Sanchez, similarly focused on the mind part of the equation, that a uniquely feminine function was being linked to intellect in the modern world. Sanchez stated, the Honorable Wallace B. Muhammad has said that man is mine and woman is mine. And by saying this, he's saying that woman is mine housed in a female body. Women do give birth to children. That is our priority. That's a natural thing that we do. But he's saying too that the woman has a mind. And it's only because man has not dealt with the woman's mind in this country that she's been relegated to the kitchen. And he says, I don't relegate Muslims to the kitchen at all. She must be about doing other things. A nation needs the strength and the work of a man and a woman. He says the Western countries have dealt with women on a very negative level. That's why we have a women's liberation movement moving around today. And because he said those simple words, we saw ourselves differently. So of course, then, I can be co-director of the Office of Human Development. Aisha K. Mustafa, editor of the Muslim Journal, noted, Imam Muhammad's appreciation for sisters could always be referred back to his appreciation for his mother. He spoke of her in such glowing terms. Imam Muhammad saw from his own mother that women can and must contribute to the large society while fulfilling their role in the family as supportive wives and educated mothers. Her example certainly informed how he used the concept of mother to discuss women's roles and scope beyond the home. The first way that Sister Clara Muhammad embodied the concept of mother to society is her essential role in establishing the Nation of Islam. After his parents, then Elijah and Clara Poole, migrated to Detroit from Sandersville, Georgia in 1930, Elijah couldn't find work, but Clara did when she went door to door asking for work. Clara therefore experienced the common hardship of Black women working as domestic servants in white homes where humanity was undermined by scant wages and the risk of sexual violence. It made sense then that she found Farah Muhammad's message of race and economic advancement attractive when she heard it from a friend in 1931. And this is Imam Muhammad quoting his mother in a lecture. My girlfriend told me there's a man who's saying some things about our people. We once dressed in long flowing cloth and we were royal. Upon her friend's invitation to meet Farad, Clara's first thought was her husband, who was haunted by hopelessness and despair. Maybe this might help my husband, prayed Clara. Elijah agreed to attend the next meetings, which proved miraculous, as it marked the beginning of Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. According to Imam Muhammad, when the meeting was over, as they were walking out, my father told my mother, Clara, when you go back home, you're gonna have to throw all the pork out of the icebox. Now that's what one lecture, one speech did. As the Nation of Islam grew, so did Sister Clara Muhammad's contribution, marking a second indispensable way that she served as a mother to society. After the disappearance of Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad contended for leadership rivals in the late 1930s. He contended for leadership against rivals who threatened his life. Between hiding from rivals in the late 1930s and spending time in prison for draft evasion in the 1940s, Elijah Muhammad left Clara Muhammad virtually a single mother of 8 for over a decade. Added to this difficult situation endured in the time of the Great Depression, Clara Muhammad took on the enormous task of carrying the organization in her husband's absence. Historian Ajale Rahman describes Clara Muhammad as an interim leader who carried Elijah's orders from prison to nation ministers. But she was more than a messenger, emphasized Mohammed. She must have been an irresistible force of inspiration and moral courage for Muhammad's ministers and followers, encouraging them to continue the work of nation building via regular meetings and recruiting the duration of Elijah's 4-year absence. The fledgling group, far from the membership numbers it could boast in the 1960s, could have easily disintegrated without the leadership of a woman with vision, faith, and resourcefulness. Once Elijah Muhammad returned to his family and the movement began to thrive, Sister Clara Muhammad's influence reached further. In 1931, she had pioneered the NOI's primary and secondary independent schools, established on a national scale by the 1950s. This was unprecedented in both Black and Muslim communities. The nation's school system, instituted by Farad Muhammad, was given the lofty title, the Muhammad University of Islam. The first classes were in Clara Muhammad's home, and she was the first teacher. She and her husband withdrew their children from the public schools in a time when homeschooling was illegal. Clara Muhammad never returned her children to public school despite harassment by law enforcement. It is reported that she told the police at her door, "I will die as dead as this doorknob before I allow my children to attend public school." Sister Clara Muhammad is a household name in American Muslim communities because of her son's vision to honor her legacy. Around 1979, Imam Muhammad renamed the University of Islam after his mother. As the First Lady of the Nation of Islam, Sister Clara Muhammad served as the exemplar of feminine virtues instilled in MGT. She was an ummah, a community, a womb in and of herself, and certainly inspired women that they too were mothers to society. Imam Muhammad dismantled the FOI and the MGT in his transition. However, he replaced them with developments such as the minister's class for men and women, and later instructresses. Most notably, between 1977 and 1978, he established Service, the Committee for the Enhancement of the Role of Women in Society. Imam Muhammad established the committee because the instructors class was somewhat contained, according to the Initially, Imam Muhammad selectively appointed instructors in Chicago and dedicated time to special lecture sessions for the women. As more women became interested and expressed ideas beyond what Imam Muhammad initially envisioned, he saw the need to create a structure in which women could organize and do more things independently. More so than the instructors class, Service developed on a national level. Local chapters had the autonomy to focus on activities as they chose. One of the first chapters of Service opened in Atlanta, where Kyria Faiz was chairperson. Kyria states, "I thought that it was a wonderful strategic move to energize our sisters and empower them." Sister Kyria, who was also assistant director at the University of Islam in Atlanta, stated, "The hardest thing for me during the nation was the lack of emphasis on family life and encouraging the brothers to be better husbands and be more sensitive towards the wives. There was like a void there. We didn't see open sensitivity from the husbands where the children can see daddy is treating mother with regard. They were busy with the work of nation building, and that was the nation building program. In other words, they were selling newspapers. Meeting the Muhammad Speak sales quota was oppressive for many families, according to a sister from New Jersey. She recalled, this is from Linda again, actually, brothers had to buy so many papers, and they had to make sure that they brought their paper money in. And if that meant using your rent money, using your gas money, using your family food money, hey, whatever, you had to do it. They never got ahead because they turned their money over to the temple. Imam Muhammad removed sales quotas and encouraged men to help their wives with housework. Sister Kyria used the Imam's new committee to enhance the women's society in Atlanta to organize family days at the masjid, where workshops were held on the topic of improving marriages. However, the women found the men resistant. Sister Kyria noted. I remember this interview with her, a lot of clips with her. I just felt like I was really getting some good information. Sister Kyria noted, we were trying to spark change But we had to use delicate and real diplomacy because the brothers did not necessarily want to see those changes. Because Imam Mohammed had established service, the women escaped outright resistance. Sister Kyrie explained, here's Imam Muhammad's model, so we can openly come against it. That was Allah's way of buttressing it. She's a beautiful sister. She had the right name, Kyrie. I wonder if Imam Muhammad gave it to her. Instead of any direct resistance from imams, Kyria observed a pattern in which every time service was putting on a program, believe it or not, the masjid would plan something at the same time to force the community to not support the service event. So it wasn't so much the community, but there was a germ that no one to see the healing worked on anyway. Although we were struggling against some imams, at least the earth had kind of cracked open a little bit, as Kyria put it. Anna Kareem, the first editor of the Mohammed newspaper. She shared similar sentiments about men attempting to defy her leadership, but with no success because Imam Muhammad had appointed her. Sister Anna's leadership at the newspaper plant was challenging, to say the least, because many on the staff were still loyal to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his teachings. There were a few reporters in the paper who wanted to report on things the Imam had given me specific instructions not to put in the paper, she told me. As she continued her story, she advised me, so either you stand your ground, sister, or they trample over you, because being a woman, this was not something these brothers were used to. You know, the militant, commanding FOI, Fruit of Islam, they were the dominant force of our community in terms of visibility. So here comes a woman saying that you have to follow the agenda of Imam Muhammad. This didn't sit well with them, but it didn't matter. You either do it or else, I told them. I was prepared for this type of defiance because I assumed the hardship of the civil rights movement. It is quite significant that it was a woman who Imam Muhammad chose to lead the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, arguably the nation's most prized economic enterprise and propagation tool, when the community made the tricky but triumphant transition to Al-Islam. But it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad who first noticed this incredibly fearless woman and personally invited her to join the Nation of Islam. In 1965, Anna Kareem was a student at Tuskegee University. She was also a member of the Student Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, where she did voter registration fieldwork in Rollins County, Alabama. Elijah Muhammad became aware of her work in SNCC after a minister sent newspaper clippings of Anna and other SNCC members being beaten by police. Upon his invitation, she sat with Elijah Muhammad, who tried to convince her to join the Muslims. Sister, if you go back there, if you continue what you're doing, you will lose your life down there. She said, I thought that was just a ploy to keep me there, but I said, sir, I have to go back. He said, well, we will let you go, sister, and we will pray that Allah will return you to us. Allah answered his dua, or prayer. After Anna nearly lost her life and saw others brutally killed, including the lynching of a pregnant woman, she decided to leave SNCC and join the nation. After graduating to Tuskegee, she moved to Chicago and became a member of his house staff, which would convene at dinner at his dinner table. I was very grateful to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because studying the Quran, listening to him teach and preach night after night at his dinner table, it wasn't falling on deaf ears. The stronger I got in understanding, the more talkative I was at the dinner table. And sometimes he would laugh and clap his hands. Keep going, sister, keep going. Ask me another question. And I was so honored that he found part of what I had learned from him worthy to impart to others. He sent me to Detroit, to Cincinnati, and to Dayton to deliver his message from the pulpit. And that had never been done by any woman. So under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I was allowed to grow intellectually, socially, and spiritually. So that to me was one of the greatest gifts God had given me, the recognition of a leader I loved and respected. Sister Anna inherited the same regard and affection for Imam Muhammad. She stated, Imam Muhammad was decades ahead by bringing women to the forefront and declaring in one of his lectures, I will follow any qualified woman, he said. What God instills in her to bring about change and human excellence among our people, I will follow. Anna's dedication to both leaders demonstrates again that the Nation of Islam paved the path upon which Imam Mohammed built his fresh teachings. While women were encouraged to be homemakers, in reality, the nation took advantage of all the various talents and qualifications of women and used them for the ultimate goal of nation building. Through the University of Islam and the nation's vast business enterprise, women made an integral part of the growth and direction of the nation. In the 1960s, in the University of Islam in Chicago, the University of Islam in Chicago, it had about 500 students, and its director was a woman. Women were included among directors and assistant directors of the University of Islam across many cities, and the majority of teachers were women. The women were directors were referred to as directresses. Similarly, women took advantage of numerous opportunities to support the nation's host of small businesses and to pursue their own entrepreneurial enterprises. NOI women secured employment in various businesses, including the Temple No. 2 Holding Factory in Chicago and the Muslim Thrift Shop. The NOI's emphasis on buying Black and fostering group cohesion provided would-be entrepreneurs with an existing consumer base. Women regularly advertised their businesses in Muhammad's name, such as Sister Nita's Sesame Seed Candy. Such businesses may have been rather small, but they nevertheless provided women with an opportunity to actively contribute to the nation's overarching economic goal of self-sufficiency. For this reason, while sisters Anna, Amatullah, and Kyria are exceptional people and leaders, many women contributed to thriving Black communities all across our nation. I know firsthand because I grew up in a working Muhammad community in Atlanta. In my mother, and all the women in my masjid, whom I call community mothers, I grew up witnessing beautiful and inspiring models of what it means to be a Muslim woman. I watched these women as leaders, as teachers, directors, fundraisers, consultants, lecturers, event planners, business owners, writers, and artists. The images on my slide are all from the 1990s. One image shows two women producing a local cable TV show, educating the public about Islam. The picture with the man features the Imam of our community in a school board meeting with principals of Imam Mohammed Elementary School and Imam Mohammed High School. When I decided to pursue my doctorate in Islamic Studies at Duke University, my intention was to show the world true images of Muslim women in order to resist the demeaning images of women, of Muslim women in the media. My office is Spelman, and my first book. When I was pregnant with my first son, I was teaching at Spelman and traveling to Princeton and other universities to guest lecture. When I delivered my son prematurely, I began to reflect on the history of Black women and work and its detrimental impact on us. I drew lessons from my community mothers who found freedom in the home. As I contemplated leading work at Spelman, the editor at NYU, who published my first book, reached out to see if I would publish another book with them. Allah led me to join another female scholar and write a book on women of the Nation of Islam. With full faith, I decided to leave my job, homeschool my sons, and write another book. After all, I had inherited a legacy to be a mother to society. I will conclude my talk with a short excerpt from one of my favorite presentations, in which I redefine Muslim women's dress as beautiful and becoming, to give you a glimpse into how I continue the legacy. The dominant image of Muslim women's modesty in the 1960s was the Nation of Islam's women's uniform, which borrowed symbols of purity from Christianity, the faith closest to home. As you can see, the uniform resembles the head covering of nuns. By the mid-1970s, there were two relevant developments. One, the Nation of Islam abandoned its Black liberation theology or teachings for global Islam. And two, an influx of Muslim immigrants from Asia and Africa brought their own cultural forms of Islam to America. Imam W. Mohammed discontinued the women's uniform and encouraged women to come up with dress styles that were Americanized in contrast to the dress Muslim immigrants brought from their home countries. The two hijab styles that evolved were the scarf tied around the back and the African head wrap. Even in the Nation of Islam, women wear the scarf loosely tied with bangs slipping from the front. Over time, the scarf without bangs and the head wrap dominated as the most popular hair color. But the presence of Muslim immigrants inspired a range of hijab looks. One sister expressed, we had the Senegalese sisters with all their headwear on, and then we had a lot of the immigrant sisters from Pakistan and Egypt, so the khimar, or the scape right around the neck, came in, and sisters were doing that beautifully. We had so many influences that you could pretty much come up with any style. And then we had African-American sisters who were designers coming up and developing their own fashion wear for sisters of African-American background so that they could have their own expression. The sister out of Harlem said that. American clothes, either store-bought or homemade, eventually predominated as the style that came to characterize, eventually predominated the style that came to characterize Black Muslim women. Short dresses over pants is one example of what women came up with when buying clothes at the store. One woman recalled this look as very attractive. This dedication to American Muslim dress styles made fashion shows popular in Black Muslim communities. They served as fundraisers for communities and a means of support Black women-owned businesses. But perhaps the greatest impact was making the younger generation of American Muslim girls and women excited about covering. When I reached my teens, the last thing I wanted to do was cover my hair. My generation wanted to fit in with their Christian peers and look attractive, which meant showing our hair. Realizing this, the women organizing our mosque annual fashion show in Atlanta recruited teen models and speakers for the youth portion of the show. I was actually one of the speakers, I was the moderator. In May 1993, a reporter for the Atlanta Journal and Constitution captured their effort to nurture among young women a strong emotional attachment to beautiful Muslim dress. In this picture, the Muslim teens were African artists. That's also my sister, Aisha. Amira Wazir, the show's organizer and commentator, was quite convincing. You've been there. Of us from New Jersey. Amira Wazir, the show's organizer and commentator, was quite convincing to the audience crowd, making proclamations like this. We are trendsetters. Europeans have copied Islamic design. We have influenced the garment industry to the point that Islamic style is in. Headwear is in. What we have been doing for years is now vogue. Interestingly, this is one of the photos from the February 2020 issue of Vogue magazine. The model is a Somali Muslim woman, but with that headpiece, she certainly does look like a woman in the Nation of Islam. Thank you so much.
We'd like to open it up for question and answer. I know that we're paying attention to the time, and I know that there's some bus rides, and we're all traveling back to our home. So we want to offer an opportunity for questions, some reflections, comments, and certainly would like to hear more from Dr. Kareem. We are grateful. If we could please thank Dr. Kareem again for her. So you can raise your hand, you can offer, sort of see some, yes, sir.
My name is Bashir, I'm from Turkish community and I want to say thank you. And you have given me a really big perspective that how you can interpret Islam in a different way and you can still continue practicing it. And we were just discussing with a brother on the way here. And today with my friend, he told me the main purpose of religion to make life easy. That's why the must-haves and all those are coming in. And I see that peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad, way is now adopted in such a way that it is perfectly fit and practiced in the African American community. And I'm really impressed with that. he did not only talk, but also he encouraged the woman, to be the warm of, is that the word, right? The warm mind. And I really love that, the movement. That was really catching. I like that. So my question was, during this period and this transition, and now we're in 2025, did you have chance to get a reflection or to be able to see the impact of what Mohammed's movement about the woman and Islam feminism, a new way of feminism, I should say? How is the impact on the other communities? And we have as you mentioned at the beginning, the brothers, they were resistant, about this change, or washing the dishes, or kind of things. So how was that impact on the other communities, Islamic communities, like after 70s, many Asians or other communities came to America? That's what my question.
Excellent question. And two, I really appreciate your comment about basically living in Islam in a way that fits our culture. I didn't really have to say it, but that was really that was one of the main missions of Imam Mohammed. So alhamdulillah, that came out through his focus on women and dress, etc. And your question really relates to my first book, which looks at relations between African American and South Asian Muslims. And I did my research in Atlanta, Chicago, field work. And part of that was, going to masjids and going to ethnic mosques, as I called them, or other scholars have called them, because, our communities are separate. So because of that, I would say there probably wasn't not an initial, immediate impact on immigrant communities, because they weren't really being influenced directly. So that's one thing. And to finish my statement about going to these ethnic mosques, one thing I was looking at was the way that women, especially Black women, often felt deterred. I did personally from going to immigrant masjids sometimes, because I know where we're located. I don't know if we're going to be in a basement. So this is something that distinguishes the working Islamic community. And I didn't talk about that here, right? That's another important topic, but women's space in the masjid. It's a huge topic, actually. And in our masjids, the majority of them, there is no barrier between the men. We're right behind the men, right? So I think that is actually, through that practice, that's one of the ways that we probably influence immigrant communities the most. That took time, though. Even it was really in the 1990s, late 90s. And there were, women movements on the mosque, women leading prayer, doing these kind of things. But it was really brought attention to the fact that women didn't have the best conditions in immigrant masjids. And as they were exploring options, they had actual Black Muslim communities to look at, right? To model some of their new designs and their practices. So I would say that would be one major way. But certainly I just think, our presence, Muslim women's presence, being in society, going to schools with immigrant Muslims and their children, that we influence them, the way that we dress, the way we carry ourselves. But also, the Americanization of dress among the children of immigrants is also a very natural process as well. I think that would happen even without necessarily our influence directly. It's just part of the cultural process. But I think all those things were happening at once, just in the same way that the sister was saying that we were influenced by the belief sisters, etc. Yes, sister. I do not. I know I should take it down. You can. Yes, you can find them at NYU Press, first.amazon.com. So yeah, you can find them. Inshallah, make dua for me. I really think I need to write a book about women in the Quran and feminism. I don't, feminist is a very controversial word. So, but I'm thinking about the feminine and the Quran, something along those lines. But Yeah, that's a good.
Yes, and yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to say thank you for a wonderful depiction of the history of Islam, the evolution of Islam. So, Jazakallah for that. I have a comment, and it's sort of related to the question that the brother posed in terms of how have we influenced other communities. You know, the Imam was very profound in terms of his presentation of Islam. And he had many spiritual jubilees, as you all may recall. So in addition to broadening our thinking with regard to women, he also brought our thinking in terms of interrelationships with other religious organizations. And as a result of that, I think that was conducive for influencing how others perceive our influence in terms of Islam as well. So I think of Dr. Suleiman Yang, who was, I think, the dean at Howard, and he said that Islam is like the Nile River. When it runs through all the countries in Africa, it takes on that particular culture. So I think the Imam was very, very representative of that.
Thank you, your friend. It reminded me, I wanted to state that after 9/11 was like a really a turning point. When Americans were scrambling to figure out how can we show them that we're American. And that's when they were really looking towards our community. Leaders in the community were saying to look towards our community. And interfaith was really critical. We were already doing that. And I was like,
Other thoughts, questions, any sisters, any thoughts, reflections? We're looking at a lot of community mothers, and I know a lot of the sisters that were shown to us. They nurtured me and shaped us. So many of them. Yes, doctor.
What a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Mohammed Abdullah, for bringing and inviting us to get together. One of the most important features of Islam and the Quran is its inclusivity. And people, they overlook this fact. The Quran is inclusive of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it depicts beautifully, with full respect, Judaism and Christianity and the women, starting with chapter 19, Surah Maryam, that talks about Mary and the miraculous birth of Jesus, peace be upon him, and how we are all looking forward to his second coming. All these are overlooked, not just by non-Muslims, by Muslims themselves, but because they never use it to build bridges and to show how much we appreciate. You cannot be a Muslim without believing in Christianity and Judaism, without believing in Moses and Jesus, peace be upon them all. You see, that's always overlooked. Thank you for bringing this. Beautiful.
Yes, later.
Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you to everyone. And hello, stop me if I talk too long. But what I'm hearing, based upon the comments and also this my life experience, in reference to your brother's question, in reference to influencing, I quote Imam Mohammed. So I was a teacher at Claire Muhammad School. I graduated from Islam while I was in that education space. And as an instructor, he talked to the teachers, and one time he was asked, how do we discipline our children? And he said, it was so simple, and that's how I believe that somebody said today, that Islam is not difficult. We make it difficult. Islam is easy. Allah wants it to be easy for us. So, Imam Muhammad, may Allah have mercy on him, grant him paradise. Amen. He said, the best way to discipline our children is to have disciplined behavior in ourselves. And I think the influence is a back and forth. And the influence is in what I'm going to proudly say as a woman and as a Muslim woman, that we have the opportunity to do every single day. Because it's the Lord. We don't have to say anything. Our modesty, our sincerity will shine through whatever garment that we choose. I'm not saying this is particular one, because she looks real sharp up there. But when the sincerity and the discipline of the self-behavior shines out, it doesn't matter. You're gonna figure out how to look the way you feel. And I think in all spaces, especially in America, because we are a multicultural place, we influence each other and we grow together. Finally, I'm gonna say in reference to the growth, it came to my mind as the sister was speaking, because I tell people all the time, I think I was born to be an NFN. My mother was raised Catholic. She embraced Islam at the age of 21. My father was raised Muslim. In the beginning, the Nation of Islam, and then he says that 1959 he believed as we believe now. But I had all these influences. So it was always like when my dad was put out the nation at 7, I went to Muslim Student Association camp. So I was always in these spaces of interfaith. And that's what we have here. Our Imam was mentioned when he spoke earlier. This is what America needs. It needs the influence, and it needs to, we as Muslims, I think, I'm not gonna say, I personally embrace, and I'm very happy to know that Islam came to complete, not to necessarily erase, but to correct. But you don't revert, you don't convert, you evolve. And even if you're born Muslim like I was, I'm evolving. So I just think that it's a lesson for us to get in space like this to be able to grow. And that's my point when it came to my mind when the sister was talking about Christianity. It's an evolvement. It's from Judaism. It's Allah's truth began when man.
A few other hands up.
So, Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. Increase you and bless you. Just made it so beautiful for me to interpret so many things. And the one thing I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
The comment is something I learned from a teacher is that madrasa is feminine. The woman is the school. And when the school is purified, society will be purified. So my question to you is, how are Black women in the madrasa today, Black Muslim women in the madrasa in America today? Because I see it and I'm like, with, hostile society, with different, spaces, how are we moving that forward, especially within the younger community and generation? Because I know something's going on and I know what's happening, but I don't know all the things that's happening. And just to inform us all, to help us be able to know that information.
Thank you. That's a really important question about the different ways that the woman, as the member of society, the educator, is manifesting beyond the home. And you mentioned the House of Society, so the House of Quran Society is one example of Black women who are supporting each other and becoming hafidat of the Quran. And that really speaks to the flyer, the poster, advertising program is another main dimension of Imam Muhammad's teaching that I like to highlight and talk. I really highlight here is the way that he taught us to learn for ourselves. There's so much, but during the transition, he really wanted us to think for ourselves, to read for ourselves, to educate ourselves, because in the Nation of Islam, you had no choice, right? There was a level of coercion in a sense, So he wanted us to be free thinkers. So in one way, and he was always in a lot of ways in his transition, he was like speaking to the Nation of Islam experience and correcting that. At the same time, he was also speaking to Christianity, because many of them had come from Christianity, obviously. So he was also still like addressing teachings as it relates to Christianity. And then also he was addressing the larger Muslim community, the larger immigrant communities, and also making sure that we did blindly follow and we're Muslims, and that we, again, cultivate our our expression of Islam. You can be African American and Muslim. And so the Quran was an important part of that because we had to know Allah's guidance for ourselves, Allah's words for ourselves. And one of the things that he did was he would have us to read a juz of Quran every day in Ramadan. And many of us, like, we noticed how we thought that was something that you had to do. And then only later did we discover, like, okay, that's optional or the regular thing to practice. But Imam Mohammed, he taught it in a way, or he like really instructed you to do it. You would think that it was like mandatory. But that was the kind of like relationship we wanted us to have with the Quran. And you see this embodied now in the way that women are and men are reading the Quran in English. So I think that's another example of influence that we're having on immigrant communities, but kind of like delayed, because now there's a bigger movement to actually know what you're reading, knowing the meaning of Allah's word, right? And that's certainly a way that we are leading in that. So that's one example of the madrasa today. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, may I just add to that? The other series, it's important to acknowledge, we've had others in the past. Imam Muhammad's influence on education. Speaking of madrasa, you see Dr. Jamil Kareem, who sort of heard Imam Muhammad. Well, I was there with all my friends, and we were trying to, we want to be imams, right? We were imams. And the sisters were listening, they wanted got PhDs. We can go on and on, going on and on. I know some brothers, I know you're but I want to.
That's a great point. To theorize about the way that restriction to not being imam, which seems very like not feminist and oppressive, really was very liberating for us because we found other avenues to lead and learn.
And the artistic piece, it's important for me to say this. Where is Kalita Supreme? Kalita, if you all, the art that you see outside is done by this wonderful artist from our community. Princeton University saw so much last year for an entire 6 weeks, exhibited her work in the gallery across the street. And for nurturing and creating space that's happened in our community, sort of produces this. And then again, I would say the fact that I'm here as the dean of Muslim life from you, I'm born in this community, and I'm preaching. And when it was announced that I got the job, they actually mentioned that he is a student of the NFN.
Imam Mohammed really emphasized that people need themselves. So it wasn't even just about the way we're Muslim, but just to really be an individual serving Allah, and that you can use it if you're an artist, if you're a cook, if you're a scholar, you can be a Muslim and a servant in that way. He really encouraged people to not feel like you have to be a certain way or fit into this mode or do what this person's doing.
I saw a lot of hands. The sister here had her hand up first, and then I see.
Oh, my number, 856. 206. 1880. Shukran. And it is a charge.
That Muslim Quran will but we didn't have that written word there in the So I just want to say again that we make a space and we can have this girl who's understood this and be able to be supported. We should embrace that. And as a woman role, I came to make my son was born in 1935. They have been I, as a mother, very quickly. And I balance activities of the house as well as corporate and as well as in my practice and method. So I said a woman will be able to support her husband and live society by being a woman man. You know, the man but communication is something that we need to also stay supported with your lives.
And the editor of our paper is a woman.
Yes, I don't know how deep into my father always say to me that the ink of the scholar is far greater than the book of murder. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And then there was a question.
I want to like to say. I would like to find out your opinion about the concept of Imam Mohammed expressed. When he said he had 2 hours to prove objectives. One was to bring us to Islam as we are. And the other was to give us the idea of self-identity. And what do you think he has done in the way to because that question came up from another Muslim from another country. They asked the question to an African person. So, what are your cultural values? And she didn't have any answer to it. You see, and I think that Imam Muhammad went to bring answers and lanes. Give us maybe blood, case blood, or give us the courage of what it is. Thinking more of your base now, to stand it up and stood up Islam. But what are we at? You don't want to go around in the dark. Who are we? Africans or part of African, part of the African. I think that requires research.
Well, your last, you mentioned identity, I made me think of reflection. He would often talk about human identity. Yeah, exactly, right. And I think that, I still want to go back to the human identity as well, because I think that both of those can work together, right? Because that was structured in the legislative process, right? And so, he often talks about Islam as being that nature to that culture that was taken away from us, right? Our language and our religion, our culture was stripped away from us. So, so yeah, that was like a core point, and I think it's an important point too in terms of identifying the best of your culture too, right? So the best of Black culture is that which is aligned with, you know, what Allah wants for us. That which is aligned with human excellence, right? That the African American culture is one manifestation of human excellence.
Wouldn't that include all people that are human excellence?
Absolutely, and so I see him as doing both.
I think he was talking about unique. That should be contributed to humanity.
Absolutely, so I think both, right? that also, again, like we're like as a life creator, all these different cultures and languages, like science versus science, right? But again, it's what's excellent in all of those cultures, right, is that which is connected to Allah. I feel like that was one of, and again, that goes to the point that you can be African American and Muslim, right? Like that, there's no contradiction in that, you know? Yeah, so, also, like, one of the things I just thought about too, he would talk about the Christian values of his mother, for instance. How she, again, talked about her singing spirituals, so he was always bringing out like the beauty in her that came from her Black Christian faith. And I think he was making the connection to say that, again, when that aligns to the human excellence that Allah wants for us, you know, that you gotta see that continuity, whether you're a Black Christian or you're a Black Muslim. If that makes sense. So it's a complex, and that's the thing though, I'm really glad you're reading that, because you know, Mohammed was a philosopher, you know, as I was going through this, when I was writing the book and trying to figure out how to explain man means mind, because there were so many statements about it, and he said, and other people said, and trying to like put it all together. Even for this presentation, I really wanted to make it very like clear. So it was a very intellectual process and effort in engaging Mohammed and listening to him. But that was so beautiful. The community seemed to be thirsty for it. I have a memory of when Imam would come to town in Atlanta, and they would like rent out the Civic Center, and everybody would get dressed up in their best clothes and go see the Imam, and they would be there for hours. You know, and I was a kid then, but when I look back on it, I think of how my parents were very committed to that, very disciplined, and listening to Imam talk for hours. So the community was really thirsty for it, and it really resonated, it really nurtured them. So.
Okay, I'm going to give another about 3 to 5 more minutes. It is getting late, and I want to make sure that I got. Is there any other questions? Am I missing anyone? Yes, so then rather here, then we'll go on.
It is distinguished, it should be distinguished, and it's okay to be distinguished. I find in our community, there is an immigrant community that they have their own privacy. And a lot of times there can be conflicts or scenes as if, well, their way is correct and our way is incorrect. And, you know, that from our reading, research, and studying, that's not the case. Law makes distinction between color, you know, and then variation. So maybe you get out of it, but anyway, I wanted to say, you know,
Okay, can we take on the
I figured that I would. And so we always the brothers and sisters that I love, and brother, do you have a question? Someone here to give us a lecture. I say all that to say that they gave me all these things. All the way back to the cell. So I was able to copy all the things, and I have about maybe about 30 or
I'm sorry I couldn't be there because I didn't know about it.
It was.
Okay. I wanna say thank you to everyone who has attended today's. And take a look at the art that's outside. We also have a table as soon as you walk outside. I'd like to get any of you who want to share your information with us, your stories. We'd love to get your name, your email address, is there anything that you'd like to, for material history, if you want to add to this program, a story, a narrative. We need you, just like Geneva has done all of her work because of your voices. We need your voice to continue to make this. Do this work 20 years, carry this work 20 years into the future. Do this work to make sure that we're telling your story, which I think is pretty and you have it reminding us again, not only is this 16 years, we're celebrating now 50 years of the pandemic. We have these books. Well, I will these books. A couple of other books outside. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for Dr. Kareem. We honor her. We're so grateful to have her share with us. Thank you.
Knees back. Good job, Billy. That's true.
That's how he called it. Because he never had a lead.
Hey, let me tell you something. When I used to drive my vehicle, I used to pull up like 5-0. I said, no, man. I'm fire car. 5-0. So that's why, you don't want that.
Now, in concluding this, when the slave traders and the black traders of Africa, traitors, different, traitors, when the slave traders and the traitors of Africa called themselves Muslims, were fighting each other and carrying on and weakening their people over there so that the white traders come in there and get us, take us on slave ships and bring us here. Now, all right? Yeah. So now, when all that happened, what you think was happening to our human soul? Let me tell you, God has given me an eye to see into the very abstract form of the human being by my study of the Quran. Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you what was happening. I know, as if I was there. The soul of those victims had given up on this world. They knew they were going to their death. They knew they were going to circumstances that were going to finish them off. They would never have their lives again. They knew that. But in their soul, they were saying, our children will one day be free again, and they will serve God. We have failed, but our children will one day serve God. And now their prayer that they prayed in the deep recesses of their soul has come true. And not only are the descendants of the black people of Africa from Islam coming to Islam, taking up the divine cause, but those who never were Muslims, their children from Christianity, their children from Judaism, their children from paganism are embracing Islam in America. And we are going to build new Africa. New Africa, right here in the United States. Allahu Akbar. And the soul of those suffering victims, they're rejoicing because of us here today.